Hello everyone, welcome to this video. We are going to deploy a very basic microservice application to an Amazon EC2 instance. This app is built with React in the front end and Express in the back end to handle our API requests. On the client side, we are making simple requests to the different APIs or services. Those APIs or services being service 1, 2, and 3. Each API sends back a simple message to the client letting us know that it is working fine. Now let's try to get this app running locally. So we are in the client side over here. We're going to say npm start. We've already CD'd into the different services. So we're going to say npm run server and do the same for the next two services. Now let's go and see what our app looks like. So this is our very basic app. The idea is simple. We press each of these buttons, sends a request to the API, and sends back the message from the appropriate API. Service 2 sends back welcome to service 2, and service 3 does the same thing. Now this is a very basic idea of what microservices do and how they function. Obviously, you would normally have an API gateway and a database for each one of these services, but for the sake of simplicity, I chose not to implement them here. Perhaps I will implement them in a later video. Now we're going to turn off our app so that we can prepare to deploy it to the EC2 server. Now one thing we should note is that once our app is going to be hosted on the EC2 server in the cloud, we're no longer going to be making these requests to localhost because we're not running it locally. So we don't need these requests in this fashion right here. We're going to get rid of this part. And the reason is we are going to have Nginx do the work for us. And it's basically going to take all the requests and send them to the appropriate API. And I'm going to show you how to set that up. It's nothing too complicated. And we'll see how to do that in a little bit. So what are microservices? Basically, it is a type of architecture or a way of designing the application such that it is broken down into multiple backends. It is used by large companies such as Netflix, PayPal, and Uber. But why would we do this? Why would we want to implement microservices? Well, with a monolithic application, which is the typical normal application that everybody's used to, as the app grows larger and larger, with many developers working on the same code base, merging their commits becomes much longer and more complex. Breaking the code down into smaller parts or mini applications alleviates this problem. Another benefit is that breaking down the code allows each team to independently deploy the services or parts of the application without having to wait on other teams. Because each service is separate from other mini applications or services, it can be written in many different languages. So for example, we can have one service that could be running on PHP and one in Python and another one in Node.js. So that's a huge benefit. Also with microservices, you only need to scale the services that are being used the most when traffic is hit high. This just means that you can host those services on multiple servers and put a load balancer in front of them. A load balancer is just a server that directs the requests to the different servers, so all the burden or the load isn't on one server. So if you're running an e-commerce site, for example, during the holiday season, you only need to scale the shopping service as opposed to scaling the entire application and hosting the entire application on multiple servers with all the other functionality or the code in that application that aren't necessarily being used during that busy season. You only scale what you need to use for that time being. So that's a huge benefit as well. So these are only some of the benefits of using microservices. Now let's launch this application onto an EC2 instance. We're going to go to the AWS console. So we're going to log in. I'm going to put my credentials. So now we're here in the AWS management console, and we're going to click on EC2. We're going to go to instances, launch instance. We could go with the Amazon Linux 2 AMI, but I prefer to use Ubuntu. So let's look for that, because I like using apt instead of yum. We're going to go with the free tier. Now for security groups, we're basically going to allow SSH from anywhere. We're also going to allow HTTP from anywhere as well. So this will allow us to go into our the terminal and communicate with the EC2 server, and for that we need the SSH protocol using port 22, and then whenever we need to actually go to our website and visit it, we use the HTTP protocol using port 80, and we can access them from anywhere. Okay, we're going to launch the instance. Now I've already created a key pair, so I'm going to go with the one that I've already created. If you want, you can create a new one, and AWS is going to make you a new key pair. But keep in mind that you have to save your PEM file, because AWS won't send you another one again. So if you lose it, you're going to have to go to the AWS console and set up another PEM file in the key pairs section under the networks and security section. Okay, so our server is now being launched, and we are going to go to our instances. So here it is, this fresh new server that we've just created, that we've just launched. So now the server is running. So let's open it up. Let's open up the browser and see what happens when we try to hit the IP for our server. So as you can see, it's just loading and nothing is going to happen. It's eventually going to tell us that it couldn't connect. This means that we need to install something to serve our files like Nginx or Apache. So now we're going to go into the terminal using git bash and communicate with the EC2. I'm going to cd where my PEM file is. Let's go and grab the DNS. Oops, I think we have a little typo over here. Let's delete this. So we're going to say yes. And we are inside our EC2. So let's see where we are. We are in this directory, and this is the directory we're going to be using to pull our application from GitHub, because we're going to install Git, and we're going to have it in this directory, and this is where all of our code is going to be sitting in. So the first thing we're going to do is sudo apt update. This is just a prerequisite for installing any software into our server. Okay. Now we're going to do sudo apt install git and nginx. Yes. Okay. So now what we need to do is start the Nginx server. So we're going to say service nginx start. Okay. So let's try to go to our server using the HTTP protocol. See what happens. Okay. So because we installed Nginx, it's actually displaying this page right here, welcome to Nginx. And this is the default file that Nginx is serving when it is installed. So we need to look for our config file, and that's the file that tells us where the HTML file that's showing us this is located. And it's located here inside this enabled. Okay, so let's open it up. Okay, so here it's saying that it is located in the directory var www html. So let's look for that. Okay, there it is. So now let's open it up and see what is inside. Okay, so let's see if this is really the file that we're looking at. We're going to edit it and play around with it. Oops. Okay. I always like to restart Nginx every time I do something with it. And here we are. Hello world from Nginx. So now that we know where we need to put our code for the UI of our application, let's clone the repository from GitHub. We're going to go to the repository, copy it, and let's go to our home directory. Git clone. So that means that all of this code is now in that directory. Let's take a look. Micro app, let's cd into it. Okay, so we have client, service 1, service 2, and 3. So now what we need to do is install npm and node so that we can use the npm install and npm run build commands. We're going to go to node source. Now I like to use the older versions. From experience, I found it to be a lot easier. So now what we're going to do is install all the dependencies that our app depends on, or that our app needs. So we're going to cd into our different services and say npm install. We will do the same for services 2 and 3 and the client. And now we're going to say npm run build. This is going to create our build folder, which contains the content that the Nginx server is going to serve. Okay, let's see if the folder is there. And it is. We have the build folder inside. So next we're going to go to var/www and make a directory known as micro frontend. And this is the directory that we're going to tell Nginx to serve the files from. Because what we're going to do is, once we make our directory micro frontend, we're going to take all the files that are inside the build folder in the client side and move them over here, and then tell Nginx to serve those files. So now what we're going to do is say chown sudo chown ubuntu, that's the user, and we're going to own this directory right here, so that later on when we edit or want to move things in and out of this folder, we won't have any issues with permissions. So now we're going to copy all the files from the build directory and we're going to copy them over here. Okay, let's see if we have them. Let's go into micro frontend, and we have all the files that are inside the build directory. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the config file and we're going to point to our new directory. Tell Nginx to serve the files from this new directory that we just made. Save. And let's go to our website. So it's not working because we didn't reload Nginx. So let's do that. Okay. So now you can see that the UI is basically working for our application. However, the backend isn't working. So if we press this, or this, or this, nothing is going to work. That's because our backend servers aren't running, and we need to go and take care of that. So we're going to go to the home directory. We're going to say sudo npm install pm2, and we're going to install it globally. And this will allow for the backend to keep working and won't stop even when there are errors. Okay. So what we're going to say is npm pm2. And what we're going to start is the index file for each of these servers. That's basically where the file that tells us where the port is, and it's basically the most important file in the backend. We're going to give it a name, and we're going to call this one service 1. Oops, let's get rid of the npm. Okay, we're going to do the same for the other two servers. Now that all of our services are running, we need to go and tell Nginx to handle the routes so that it can send each route to the appropriate service. So we're going to need to go into our config file. So we're going to need to make 3 separate location blocks for all of our services. And the location block over here is pretty much telling us that if we have any route that is unknown to our website, then we're just going to send a 404 error. So let's say that we are, we accidentally type in some random route that we don't even know, and it's going to send back a 404 error. Okay. So let's go and make our location blocks. And each API, as we saw earlier in the start of this video, each API is separated by the number. So we have API 1 for service 1 and API 2 for service 2, etc. We're going to say proxy pass, and it's going to send it to HTTP. Okay. Okay. So basically what proxy pass does is it allows Nginx to work as what's known as a reverse proxy. And basically all the clients are going to make a request to our server, and Nginx is going to basically redirect all of those requests to the appropriate service in the backend. And that's basically what it does as a reverse proxy. And that's what the proxy pass script or the proxy pass here is for. So now that we're done with this, let's exit out, save our changes. Okay, and then what we're going to do is reload Nginx. Looks like we have an issue with our file. Let's go back and try to fix that. I think the typo is over here. Okay. Let's try to reload it once again. And hopefully it works this time. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Let's see if our backend is working. Okay. So there you have it. We deployed this microservice application to the EC2 server on the AWS cloud. If you found this video helpful, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, please let me know as well. I'll try to answer any questions or concerns that you have. Thank you and have a good day.